Welcome to the Go With Your Flow podcast. My name is ERIN Ryan. I'm the owner and founder of Crystal Lake Reiki LLC, the founder of 5-Element Dragonfire Reiki, and I have a master's degree in traditional Chinese medicine, a bachelor's in nutrition, which is Chinese herbs. And it is my greatest passion to help healers heal themselves, become masterful healers for their clients, and also build a sustainable, sexy, successful six-figure business. And today, I'm so excited. I have Stephen Warner here with me. This is our second episode together because we were just like so in love with the first one. We wanted to dive in. So, Stephen Warner is a sexual healer and intuitive energy worker. He's a Holy Fire Reiki master teacher and 5-Element Dragonfire Reiki practitioner. Stephen works with clients virtually and in person to help them remove shame around and deepen into their natural sexual expression. Okay, he guides his clients towards reconnecting their sexuality to self-love and the love they give others. Stephen's a firm believer that every act of sex with yourself or another is an attempt to return home to God. Like, I love that. Whenever I see that, I'm like, oh my God, yes, yes. So the work he does demonstrates this concept and teaches others how to access God through sex more effectively. So thank you so much for being here, Stephen. I'm so excited, as usual, to have you here. How are you doing today? And then we can just like dive right in.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm doing really well. I'm super excited to be here too.
Beautiful. So I know we talked about really diving into your journey some more, and in particular, where when you started sacred sexual healing, where you are at now, and mentorship, right? Because you and I did a very deep dive one-on-one mentorship for, oh my gosh, it was over a year, right?
hmm
And since then there was a break, right? We had, I think it was around a year break, wasn't it?
At least,
And
yeah.
at least, and then we'll totally dive into that whole thing because that is so juicy, like how that happened and why there was a break. And then now you've come back into my containers as well. So, do you want to go ahead and just like dive in? Why did you start to seek out mentorship in the first place? And we can start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had never really been exposed to mentorship before, but I remember this was back in 2020, 2019, 2021, that kind of range. And I was connected with you on Facebook. You were my Reiki master teacher. And so I was kind of in your world. I was seeing what you were putting out there. And at the time, you had this program called Mad Love out there for women to help them in their relationships. And at the time, I was married to my now ex-husband, and we had a very dynamic and rocky relationship. There was just a lot of dysregulation between the two of us, and there was just a lot of unease in our relationship. And you had this program out there that was for people to help them in their relationships. And I was really called to that. I was called to you, I was called to your medicine. And so I remember reaching out, asking, like, can I join this as a man? And you were just offering it to women at the time. So you proposed, working together in a more of a mentorship container. And I had never been exposed to that before. So I remember we sat down, we did a Zoom together, and you kind of talked to me about what all of that looked like. And so it wasn't so much I was like, oh, I want to get into mentorship. It was more like I see ERIN, I know ERIN, I trust ERIN. She's got a lot of juicy, good stuff going on. She seems to know what she's talking about. I'm really drawn to her energy, and I know that I need some sort of help or assistance here. So let me just reach out and see what comes together.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I love how you got to me, right? And it's through Mad Love. I launched that in 2020. It was my first like really public big group offering. And yeah, it was all about exactly what you're talking about. Really being a spiritual person, specifically aimed towards women in their, that's back with COVID was here, right? So I was like, oh my gosh, everyone's stuck at home with their spouse, their partners. And it's like, oh boy, like now we're really gonna have to get into it. Like we can't just like distract ourselves and run away. So I love the way that you entered into it. How did you know that it was like a fuck yes for you? Like do you remember the thought process, the feeling in your body, the like, oh yeah, like, okay, this is for me, especially because you weren't necessarily seeking it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was just a yes in my body. It was like, I need change. I'm sick and tired of just these patterns that I've been playing out. And I talk about, dysregulation in my relationship. It was also, I mean, that was a symptom of just the internal dysregulation I had in myself. That was one expression of it. So it was, I need something different, and I need something, because I've been through the ringer in terms of Western medicine and pharmaceuticals and talk therapy and all of that kind of stuff. And it all served a really great purpose to me, but I reached this point where I was just like, it's not enough. The change that I'm looking for isn't happening, and I'm just kind of spinning and repeating these cycles. And so when we sat down together, it was just like, it wasn't really a conscious process. It wasn't really like, oh, A plus B equals C. This is going to work for me. It was more like I said, I'm drawn to you. This feels really good. It's something I've never done before. It feels a little scary and a little edgy, but also like, it was just a yes. It was just, let's move this way.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love that you bring up, like, a lot of people who find me, they have tried more traditional approaches, right? They have done the Western medicine approach. And like, I myself have a therapist. I really believe in talk therapy, for instance. I believe that when you have the right person who's also trained, and a lot of my clients are trauma survivors. So having somebody who is specialized, highly specialized and attuned and tuned into that, I think it's part of holistic health. But I have found the exact same thing, which is what you're talking about. It's not enough. And so these patterns are so deep. And in the Western medical system, the therapist tends to be separate, right? There's a separation created and a space between you, the client, and the therapist themselves. And of course, there's healthy space. And then there's also a space of disconnection. And so one of the things, my clients like you come to me for one thing, which is like, hey, this is what's happening in my relationship, for instance. But like, holy macaroni, like, we go deep, we go around, we really pinpoint and go deeply into those experiences. And throughout that process, as you know, I'm there and I'm transparent as well. I'm bringing forward things that are going to help you connect the dots, for my personal life, for instance, or my professional life, or whatever it is that you need. I'm going to bring that forward. And so in that way, it's a deeper relationship. It's a more intimate relationship. There's more trust. And when there's more trust, you talked about dysregulation in the nervous system, safety and trust, and that softening must happen first in order for us to be safe space holders for our clients to open. And so that's something I prioritize. And obviously I prioritize it with you. And do you feel like that worked for you?
Yes, yes. And I wanna back up just a couple steps to lay the foundation for where I was, where I came. Um, as you know, diagnosed with bipolar 1 manic depressive disorder. And I from age like from around 2014 until 2020, I was cycling through a ton of dysregulation around that. So mania, depressive episodes, psychosis, inpatient hospitalizations, suicide attempts, like this whole bag of worms of just extreme dysregulation. And by 2020, I was deep in the world of Eastern medicine and acupuncture and herbs, and I was using more holistic medicine to regulate myself, but I was still not quite there. I was still always kind of like teetering. I don't want to say teetering on the edge, but I was still playing out like some pretty severe patterns of dysregulation. And there was still a ton of trauma stuck in my body that was, kind of being kept at bay, but wasn't necessarily addressed or released. And at the time, I was actually still on one of my final Western medications, which was lithium carbonate. So I was still on Western pharmaceuticals. And it was through working in this container with you that I was able to learn about the trauma body and learn like what's required to clear trauma out of the body. And therefore, like the natural byproduct of that, in my opinion, maybe you've got a different one, is a more regulated nervous system.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Because what happens is, we get stuck in these they're called stress cycles, right? And so if you are not brought fully through the stress cycle back, from the sympathetic nervous system response, which is like fight or flight or freeze or fawn, right? Then if we're not brought safely through that process back into the parasympathetic nervous system response, which is when we're regulated, right? Rest, relax, digest, then we get stuck there. And so that trauma gets lodged in our body. And so what I do is I safely bring my clients, you included, through that stress response. And so as a natural byproduct, as you said, it's a more regulated nervous system. And then clarity can come, higher order thinking, creativity, right? We can really experience the world in a very different way. And so I'm going to hand it back to you. How did you start to experience things differently?
So the level of internal safety was the main thing that grew for me. And that was a newer concept to me. I mean, we all at some level, I think, play out codependent patterns, but that was like a big thing for me where I was really reliant on other people to be a certain for me to feel safe, in order for me to feel regulated. And so being in a marriage and, everything that was, I was reliant on my partner for specific things. I was putting too much weight, too much baggage, too much heaviness on him in order for me to feel okay, right? So that was a huge imbalance, a huge stressor on the relationship. I was also, I mean, at the time, I was still drinking quite a bit. So I don't know if I would call myself like a recovering alcoholic, but like I had major, major addiction issues play out in my past. Like now, not an issue. Like I have a glass of wine when I want to, and I partake as I choose to. It's not something that like dominates my life anymore. But back then, it was like get home from work, 6 White Claws with dinner, and then go to sleep. It was a lot of drinking. So the level of internal safety that grew for me with this and the learning to regulate the nervous system and like I said, that internal safety created that stability internally for me to choose different and choose things that I could hold myself through instead of relying on substances or relying on somebody else or distractions to kind of prop me up.
That and that's everything, right? Because when we go into the root issue, which is, I am all about the root work. I am here for the messy, right? We're in the root system. It's dirty, it's messy, it's dark, right? Where a lot of other practitioners, they only want to do like the really, really sexy, fun expansion work. But I recognize that without this deep work, it's like a house of cards, right? Like there's not stability. And so the fact that you experience so much internal safety after having bipolar disorder, after having addiction issues, right? Being in and out of inpatient facilities and all of that is absolutely incredible. And I know during our time together, you did stop taking your pharmaceuticals. You were working with your healthcare professional, right? I just want to say for everyone who's like, oh my God, you're not supposed to be, doing that, Erin. You're not qualified to like talk about medications. I didn't. Stephen just told me it's something he was doing that he chose to do with his doctor. And so, of course, I was there to support his choice as he was safely moving through that. I would never do that, but it was a very incredible thing. And since I've worked with you, I've had other clients as well who have chosen safely with their medical care provider, wink, wink, right? Like to choose to get off of pharmaceuticals, especially antidepressants and things of that nature. But for bipolar disorder, it's like a more intense, right, process. How was that for you, sort of weaning out of that? How did that go?
Yeah, so it was actually accidental in a way. So at the time, my psychiatrist was not a practitioner that I felt supported by. It was not somebody I felt seen by. It was not somebody that I really thought like was looking out for me and really taking care of me. It was a whole story, but I was living in Illinois, then I moved to Wisconsin, and my psychiatrist was still in Illinois, and basically like he was still prescribing me this lithium carbonate, which I was on, and it was like, it was the one that worked. It did the job. And at the time, I remember if I would stop taking it or forget like a week, like I would start getting a little more manic. I would start getting a little revved up. So it was very much something that my body was requiring. But what ended up happening was I lapsed on my refill, or I didn't make another appointment, or my insurance went bad, or something where like my next prescription didn't get refilled. And I kind of just let it happen. I was just like, you know what? Like, okay. And I was seeing a chiropractor at the time, and he introduced to me this supplemental lithium, this elemental lithium, which is not a prescription. It's more just like a nutritional supplement that you can get. I don't think it's over the counter, but it's like you can get from a chiropractor or an acupuncturist, or you don't need a prescription for it. And so I shifted to taking a supplemental, more natural form of this lithium, and everything ended up being fine. And it was this wild thing where I remember my partner at the time was way more freaked out about me like not being on my prescription than I was. And there's a couple facets to that, but I think the biggest thing for me was like I had developed this internal safety where I was like, no, I can do different here. Like I trust that I trust in myself. I trust in the level of regulation I've reached through this container with ERIN, that I can start stepping onto a new path here, and say things go wrong, I can hold myself and bring myself back to stability, but I'm willing to move a little bit off the cycle or the path that I'm on to choose something that was more natural and more calling to me through how I was nourishing myself.
That is incredible. And, as you know, that's a huge part of the work that I do, especially when somebody comes to me, presenting the way you did with your complaints about like the depression, the manic, right? Like these really, really big like highs and lows. And to me, it's actually a gift and a capacity that just needs to be tempered and worked with in the energetic realm, in the nervous system realm. Like, as you know, I'm a huge neuroscience geek and have studied the nervous system and taken courses and things as well. So it's this beautiful synergy between the energetic work, which we were working on, and also the nervous system work. And so, and that is the gold, is that you're able to go, I fucking got this. I can do this. And it's true, right? It's not like we're trying to convince ourselves, right? Like affirmations, like, oh, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this, but you actually don't, you don't actually feel like it. You were like, no, I've got this. I feel it. I feel connected to this, and I'm going to go here. And as a result of that, right, oh my gosh, like this whole body of work is being born through your business. Your sacred sexuality business is being born. You were able to have the internal safety and trust in yourself to leave that relationship, right? Because it wasn't for your highest, right? You probably could have stuck around in there, but it wasn't your highest timeline. Can you speak to that a little bit about like the difficulty moving out of your relationship as well?
Yes, but can I redirect
Yeah,
this just a little
of
bit?
course. Go for it.
So I definitely want to get there, but before we get too far that way, I want to touch on something you said before about the difference between, talk therapy and this kind of work. And I loved what you said. You said there is a certain level of separation with talk therapy that comes together in these containers. Can you share a little bit just about like what do these containers look like for anybody who hasn't been in one of them, or this is the first time hearing about them? How do you structure them, and how does that look?
Yeah, thank you. Well, as you know, so with you, we got on a Zoom call. I don't always get on Zoom calls with people. It just depends on what they require. Sometimes it's done over Facebook Messenger, sometimes it's done on the phone. It just depends. And so we have a conversation. And the first thing I'm looking for is my medicine a match for you? And I look at it like medicine. It's energy medicine. It's emotional, spiritual medicine. And so just like if you were to go to your traditional Western medical doctor who's actually giving you a prescription for a medication, it's got to be the right fit. It's got to be the right person. It's got to be the right dosage. It's got to be the right type of medication and the right length of time. So we have a conversation around that. And then I feel into it. It's a very multidimensional experience for me when I'm working with somebody or potentially going to work with them, because I'm really in this receptive state of just being there with you, feeling into your energy in a non-invasive way. It's not like I'm going into your energy or anything like that, but I'm just really being with you in that moment. And that is maybe a little bit of a difference between talk therapy and what I do. Is it is a multidimensional experience. I don't look at there's healthy boundaries between my clients and I, and that's how I'm able to maintain sacred space. But I also recognize we are on a cosmic level one, right? So there's a oneness that happens in my containers. There's a safety, there's a kindness, there's a nurturance, right? A balanced nurturance. And I want to say too, what's happening, as I mentioned before, is I'm bringing my clients through the stress cycles. That often requires co-regulation. And we were supposed to get co-regulation as children from our parents, but we weren't able to get it. So if you are going to talk therapy and what you actually need is somebody to co-regulate with you so that you can bring you through the stress cycle, so that you can remove the trauma out of your body, and you're going to somebody who's disconnected, disinterested, like you mentioned, your psychiatrist, you didn't feel supported by them, it's impossible for you to move through the stress cycle. So what I'm looking for when I'm working with my clients or potentially going to work with them is what is going to be the right fit for you, what works with your lifestyle, what works with your goals, like what are your intentions, right? We need to have an intention. If this has come up more recently, like for my clients, if you don't have a clear intention for the container, like or at least something you're moving towards, that can also make things a little bit wobbly. So we set up like, what is it you're actually wanting? And sometimes it requires me helping my clients even understand what that is. Sometimes they do, actually often they'll show up and be like, I was just drawn to you. I like know you do this, it's in this. What is a good container for me? This is what I'm going through. And so we go through that process. Then I hand design, maybe there's a program that I have that is perfect for you. Maybe that's already running or about to run, or maybe we need to do something else like I did with you, Stephen, where it was like, no, this is the container. It's a combination. My favorite is a combination of things like Voxer or Telegram. For those of you who are not familiar, those are walkie-talkie apps, right? So they're free apps on your phone, and then you have me in your pocket, right? You can access me real time, anytime. And it's a way, because a lot of my clients, you're one of them, Stephen, are verbal processors. Like you get so much out, right? Like you'll be in there and you'll be like, and I just answered my question, right? Like you just needed somebody safe and a safe container, right? To go into it. And so I can be there to help hold you, hold the bottom, so you're not collapsing as you're moving through all of this. And then we also typically will do Zooms or in person if the person is close enough to me. I'm in Crystal Lake, Illinois, so Northern Illinois, actually quite near the Wisconsin border. And then we'll do a combination of that. I also have programs like one-on-one intensives. I'll give a Dragon Oracle as an example. That is a group program, but it's also a one-on-one intensive. When people come into that, they get access to everything I've done or am doing. So for instance, I helped a priestess who was transitioning to Oracle birth her codex, her book. And I gave her she was hooked into multiple healing grids, which means multiple programs. And I know, Stephen, you and I have talked about this before too. Everything I do, there's a healing grid. So now we're moving deeper into the energetics. So when somebody says yes to me, to one of my containers, they're actually saying yes to themselves through me. And they're saying yes to hooking into, if you imagine like a grid, it's a geometric energetic structure, and it's different, right? Based on the intentions. And they immediately are hooked into that. And so that is running 24/7, 7 days a week. That's why they'll literally like make the payment for one of my programs and things will immediately start to change. They're like, we haven't even started the program yet, right? So then we go through that, we go into the container, and then I do a combination of really like, okay, where are we? Where do we need to get to? So I'm keeping that in mind the entire time. But when I'm in a container with you, you run the show, right? Like I'm here to support you and guide you, right? And I'm also here to look at blind spots for you as well, right? Like things you might not be seeing, because people will come to me and they'll say, okay, this is my issue here. But if you follow it down to the root, it's different. And so that's a lot of what you and I did together too, right? As we like went deep into what is the actual, if we follow the thread down, if we follow it all the way down to the base so that we can dissolve it, so that we can alchemize it. And it is my deepest honor, like to hold you, to hold other people, other human beings. And it's like what I was put on planet Earth to do is to lead leaders. And that's what you are. That's what my other clients are. You're here to do big things. So thank you for asking.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's so juicy. There's so much there. There's so much there. I absolutely love it. And the note about the co-regulation and like the what was so beneficial for me in all these containers was, like you said, having you in my pocket, right? And I've done so much talk therapy and it's so wonderful, but it's okay, I'll see you in 2 weeks. or okay, I'll see you. And that wasn't enough for me. I didn't have that closeness, that connection to move through things in real time. So the beauty of these containers, my favorite ones are the Voxer ones or the Telegram ones, where I have you right there as stuff comes up in real time. I can move through it with you. I can ask you questions. I can share it to you while it's alive in me, which makes the energetics on your end that much more spot on in tune.
Well, especially because I work with channels, I work with intuitives, right? You're a channel, you're an intuitive. Even if you didn't, I don't think when you came to me, you were thinking, I'm a channel, or I'm an intuitive, but you were drawn, right, to me. And so channels, intuitives, we really require when the energy is alive, getting that support. If a moment passes and we're not getting it, that's a moment, that's an opportunity missed. So that's the beauty of this voice support is you can drop in and the recording's there, and then sometimes I'm able to be there right with you as you are saying it, and that's really awesome. And sometimes there's a bit of a gap, and that's okay too. But no matter what, you're able to encapsulate the energetics, the frequency, what you're moving through, and then be witnessed. And being witnessed in that from a space of unconditional love, zero judgment, zero shame, it transforms just that. And I always like, and till the day I die, I will say the most potent part of my medicine is my space holding, and it is the most undervalued or unseen for most people because they just don't understand how deep it goes. People might come to me because they want to make more money. Well, you know what? We can trace that all the way back to the father wound or the God wound. Like or the mother wound, like there's so much happening there. So when we're able to really, what's the word I want to use? Like synergize, harmonize, balance, commune with our nervous systems, with our subconscious. And the nervous system is deeply connected to our subconscious, right? So when you work with the nervous system, you have a direct connection into that. And in order for us to get what it is we desire in the world, we need to have a union of will. The conscious and the subconscious must unify. And once they unify, it just flows in oh yeah, of course, it was always there. Like it just naturally comes in for my clients. And so this is why it's so important to be held by somebody who understands both. If we're working with somebody who is deep in the energetics but doesn't actually understand the nervous system, they don't necessarily know how to safely move you through a trigger or their own trigger. My clients trigger me. Not often. It doesn't happen often, especially now, but it does happen. And so I know that's mine. And so I take the time that I need, right, in order to process, and it's a gift, right? And then I expect at some point you will also be triggered, right? And that's bringing you through that stress cycle. And that's why it's such edgy work. That's why so many people in the spiritual community have been disillusioned, like in the coaching community, because they feel like, wow, I went in, I thought it was safe, but it wasn't safe. And it's one of the things I've realized is like, there aren't a lot of people who are actually masterful at this. And it's like what I've dedicated my whole life to. So I love that. Do you have any follow-up questions? Because you know me, I like go off on tangents.
I know my brain is going 300 different ways. I guess to just like summarize, how these containers work, the way I kind of look at it is, when I hire somebody like you to mentor me through any specific phase or period, I almost see it as you've walked through the hell that I'm about to walk through yourself already, and therefore you can hold my hand and help me walk through it. I've got to walk through it myself, but I've got somebody who has a GPS that's properly functioning and has the internal safety to, stay standing as I'm kind of like wobbling back and forth. And you are the guiding light and you help walk me from point A to point B.
That's beautifully put. And also, like, part of it too is showing you, and this is what you spoke to in the beginning, that you have the answers too, right? And this is one of the things I love, like I've chills, I love about the work that I do is I'm not here to feed codependent attachments or feed some kind of like narcissistic thing, which is unfortunately a thing. So sometimes when people get into containers with gurus, spiritual mentors, whatever, coaches, they're actually wanting you to continue to externalize your power into them. come to me. I have the answers. See, I'm so safe. I'm so this, but they're not actually redirecting you like, no, you have the answers. You have the power. You know, right? And that's what I love about what I do is when you get to the point where you're like, holy shit, I do fucking got this. But in the moments you don't, or you feel like you don't, it's more like you feel like you don't. I can be there to support you, to hold you, to keep you from collapsing, right? The nervous system from collapsing. And what happens a lot of times is we're like mid through the rebirthing canal and we get stuck. When you have the right person there for you, and it does have to be the right person, you're not stuck, right? I go in and I go, oh, we just gotta like, right, like do this and this, and it's not like a big to do, right? Like, oh, no problem. And then you're able to continue moving forward. So it is oftentimes for my clients the difference between, okay, I've made the breakthrough and now I'm stuck. You mentioned it earlier, like that hamster wheel or that a merry-go-round just spinning around and around and around and around. So it's really powerful. It's really potent. But at the end of the day, the outcome is, okay, you have this internal safety. That sounds cool, but like, what did you do with it? You know what I mean? And that's when one of the things I love watching is like, after we've established this, you get to go, you get to actually make choices that move the needle, that move you forward in your life and go do the soul aligned thing, the mission, the purpose on your heart, which is exactly what you have been doing. So it's beautiful.
Thank you. It's so juicy. It's all so good. I also want to speak to the messiness involved and the difficulty and the courage that being on the client end of this, I mean, on the mentorship as well, on your side of it too, but being on my side of it, it requires, because I remember getting into this and I love the analogy of it's like when you go to remodel a house. First you got to tear down the walls and do demo day and things get messy and dusty and dirty and there's nails sticking out. And then you kind of remodel, then you clear it out, and then you build anew. But I remember when I first dove into this, and it happens again and again as I continue to dive into these containers, but shit gets messy first. Like we open up these stress cycles and we move through them, but it's not like, oh, sweet, I paid somebody to help me. Now things are going to be super easy and peachy, and I'm just going to float down through this healing journey. It's like, no shit, fuck. Now I've actually got to do the work. Now I actually have to look at this trauma and allow it to, you say it all the time, feel it to free it without feeding it. The way to remove the trauma out of the body is to feel it, is to complete those stress cycles. And those are often very big feelings, challenging feelings, and feelings that our society doesn't always teach us how to properly hold ourselves through.
Very, very well put. Exactly. And it does get really messy. And that's why, not all of us are actually equipped for this type of work, especially a lot of healers, for instance, who come into this coaching sort of space. They don't know how to hold themselves. They haven't cleared their codependent patterns. They don't know how to walk themselves or their clients through a trigger. They don't even know what an actual trigger is, right? So it is messy. And that's part of what I do too, is I hold the vision for you. How many times have I, with my clients, like reflecting on it, you too, it's just like, this is too hard. I can't do this. And we hold the vision. We keep holding it. I hold it for you when you can't hold it for yourself. Like, keep going, because like you said, it's messy, the demo. And it happens all the time. People will sign up with me and then shit will blow up. And they're like, I thought it was supposed to get better. Why is it worse? And I look at that and I go, yes, good. Good. The fact that things are blowing up in your world means you actually feel safe. You feel safe enough to have this activated so that we can go into the deep, into the depths. And then what results is something so solid, right? The foundation is no longer cracked. It's no longer rocky. It's not uneven. And it's so solid that you can build your empire on it. You can build your castle, your temple, whatever it is, on that, because it's just so stable. And it's beautiful. That being said, I want to talk just a little bit about the messiness. So there was a
Yes.
period of time with you, Stephen. I know we talked about like we were going to go here. So let's go here. You know what I'm about to say. So in one of my sessions with Stephen, I said something that triggered you, right? Triggered him. And that wasn't addressed, right? I didn't catch that it triggered you. You didn't bring it forward that you triggered you. And so that planted a seed that ended up in like a year plus of you blocking me
Mhm.
completely. So I would love to just hear about that from your perspective, and like how did you end up reconnecting with me?
Yeah, so I can't even remember the specifics of it. But I remember we were in a container like this, and we were towards the end of it. We were in like a Voxer container, and we were towards the end of the month or the couple months that we were in. And I was doing some processing, and I was, bouncing it off of you. And I don't even think it was like this big thing, but there was something that you said, or the way that you said it, or the way that I received it, that made me think that like it was something like, oh, she's trying to like keep me like in intertwined in her world without allowing me to expand to my own unique. It was this weird thing where I put the blame on you. And the way that you said something kind of triggered me, and I just was like, all right, I'm out. Like, I was like, you know what, screw this. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Like, I got so much benefit, but it's time for me to go my own way. Like, that's it. We're done, whatever. And I blocked you. I blocked you on Facebook. I blocked you on Instagram. And I needed space. I needed space. And it was, it's also beautiful. I mean, everything happens in the divine order. Everything happens the way it's supposed to. And in that period, I ended up, leaving my husband and moving out on my own and going on this like wonderful journey of like tackling things on my own. But there came a point where I was like, I need some support. Like I need some support here. And I remember a friend of mine had mentioned she was in a group with you and she experienced this amazing benefit. And then you just kept popping into my mind, popping into my mind, popping into my mind. So I was like, okay, okay. And then I reached out to you and then we ended up diving into another container together. But the beautiful thing was the level of trust that I had and the amount of safety you had in yourself in order for somebody to come and be like, you triggered me, and kind of for somebody to point the finger at you and you be able to receive that and be like, oh my God, like I hear you, I still love you, like let's move through this together, like what's the tea, what's really going on here, instead of somebody being like, oh, you're wrong, I didn't do anything, like this is, how dare you point the finger at me. There was just this really beautiful, easeful, nourishing space for me to be like, okay, you kind of hurt my feelings. Like my feelings got hurt and it made me want to run away from you, but now I'm back because I want to do things with you, but I still want to like we got to kind of talk about this still.
Yes. And I remember when you did come around, because I kind of noticed, I was like, huh, Stephen just like really jetted after our contract was up, right? I was like, okay. My awareness on my end, when I looked at it, I was like, he needs this time. He doesn't need me right now. What he needs is to go and apply and fully integrate everything he just learned. And I think this is my own personal like awareness, or actually it's just an opinion, is that your mind attached to that thing because I did say something maybe that like rubbed you a little bit the wrong way. I think it attached to that because you knew subconsciously, I need a break from this woman. So that created, right? If you're like, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about, right? Then that gives you the space that you needed. And then once you actually got that space, you integrated, you came back around, you're like, oh, okay, I see what happened there, right? And then yes, you had, even after over a year, you had enough trust in yourself and me that you were able to come, and this is one of the things I do is like we have a conversation. It's not me becoming reactive, right? This is what I talk about. Like if my clients trigger me, that trigger belongs to me. And I'm trying to remember, I don't remember being triggered when you came to me about that. I remember being like, oh, that explains a lot, right? Like that explains a lot. And I learned a lot from that experience too. And I don't expect perfection out of myself. Perfectionism is a trauma response. I don't expect perfection out of my clients. Again, that's a trauma response. If we need them to be exactly a certain way all the time, or ourselves, even needing our clients to heal on especially in a certain timeline, that is projection, that is codependency. So it was a really beautiful thing for me. Like, wow, that really speaks to the containers that I do hold, that even after this time, you felt comfortable coming back, you felt comfortable speaking into it, because it would have been much easier for you to not do that. And so I'm curious, where do you feel like you'd be at? And please feel free to like deviate from this if I'm
Yeah.
skipping. Where do you feel like you'd be at if you did not choose this high level mentorship?
I would be leaps and bounds behind where I am now. The first round, we worked together pretty closely for a year, 14, 15 months. And that was what really taught me how to regulate my nervous system, really taught me the tools. There was definitely a lot of integration that came past that initial container, but I finally had the tools to regulate my nervous system and build up that internal safety, which brought me to the point of having the courage and the self-confidence and again that level of internal safety to be like, I'm going to leave my husband. Like he's the breadwinner, he supports me, but I need different, I want different, I'm going to choose different. And that was at the time the biggest new scary thing to do. And it wasn't easy by any means, but I was like, fuck it, I can do this, I can do this. And so I did. And then I was able to, and at the time I was living in southern Wisconsin, but most recently I was able to move across the country to California to continue pursuing my dreams and making my sacred sexual business my full-time gig. So if I hadn't chose to get into this world of mentorship, well, I'm also now holding these containers for other people, which is a beautiful thing. So I mean, I probably would have left my husband by now, but I don't think I'd be 3 years behind at least. And that's where like the financial investment on all of this, it's been substantial, but it's like, it's so worth it to speed up and catalyze the timeline that exponentially. It's like, what dollar amount wouldn't that be worth?
Yes, and I've experienced the same thing as the client in the mentorship as well. Like, just so grateful to my mentors that they went first, that they were able to hold the spaces for me that they did, and that I can hold spaces for you. And now you're holding spaces for others. It's like we all rise together. And I want to say too, and you know this, Stephen, there's no hierarchy for me. Like we are the same level. I happen to be in specific ways farther along the journey, but that's not a superiority thing for me, right? Like, and all of my clients have incredible, amazing genius that I recognize, like in sacred sexual healing, you are farther along on that journey than I am. And I'm happy to learn from you. And so it's this really beautiful sort of sisterhood, brotherhood, human, right? Coming together that we have, and we all rise together, right? It's collaborative, it's community based, it's tribe based, and as you know, like human beings, we require other safe human beings, especially when you walk this path, especially when you're here to help change and shift the planet. So, and we're in finite human bodies, our bodies age. Yes, I get that time does not exist, but time exists in the body, right? Like our cells degenerate. And so, like you were saying, the length of time, the amount of time that is saved, right? And we can only just guess how much that is, but it's incredible. And money is energy. When we invest in an aligned way for ourselves, we're investing in ourselves, right? Yes, it's via another human being, but it's us. We're actually saying yes to our heart's desire, to what we came here to do and to be and to choose. And as a result of that, like you said, you were able to get off traditional pharmaceuticals. Are you still taking the natural lithium? I'm just curious.
I am, yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So you found something that worked better for you and your body. You're being supported in that way. That's amazing. You were able to leave your husband. You were able to start this very successful, very quickly. It did not take much time at all for you to become very successful in your sacred sexual healing business. So, and this is just like the beginning, right? Like, and what I love the most is the groundwork we set, the framework we set, the foundation. It's going to continue to serve for you over and over and over again, right? It's just like the gift that keeps on giving. And that is just so satisfying for me as, your mentor, and just a human being to witness you rise. And that's one thing I want to say too, is it's so important to find a mentor who does not project on their clients, who also is not secretly, and I hate to say it, but this is a thing, secretly jealous of them or envious, like maliciously envious of them, who actually secretly doesn't want to see them rise because it threatens them. Like there's a whole sort of cavern, there's a whole glacier of issues that can come up when the person who's holding the space is not self-actualized, when they're not actually doing this deep, dirty work first. And so it's just like an absolute honor and pleasure. Like one of my greatest honors of my life has been holding you. And now I just get to like grab the popcorn and like watch you go. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. So thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
trusting me. Thank you for trusting yourself. Thank you for speaking into this. Like this is really, this is a deep look into your internal world and process and like what you've been through and what you're going through. So thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you for like being one of the people that helped change my life so dramatically. And I really enjoy speaking about it. There's so many, like you're such a resource, right? And these containers are such potent resources that I didn't know about before chatting with you. I didn't know about, and there's so many people that are trying. They're trying, they want different for themselves, and they're going to the therapist and they're going to the psychiatrist and they're doing all of the things that I did that were kind of helping manage things, but weren't the potent resource that actually made the change. So I'm so happy to be talking about this. I'm so happy to be sharing this to anybody who it might be helpful to. And I also just want to touch on the foundation that these kind of containers help create and the structure and the internal safety that they help create can be used for any purpose, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody like when I first entered this, I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go into sacred business and I'm going to go do all of these things. It was just, I wanted to be happier. I wanted to be more satisfied. I wanted to have more ease and peace in my world. And it was that simple. And I think that is a perfectly good enough reason to seek out one of these containers. It doesn't have to be this big grand scheme. It can be as simple as I want to like my life more. I want to be more in love with myself. I just want to feel a little bit better. And that's plenty good reason in my mind to seek out something as potent as this.
I absolutely love everything you just said, and I completely agree. And that's how I started my sacred business is I just got so sick of being unhappy. I just got so tired. I'm like, I did the thing. I did everything you told me to, right? Like society, and I am so unhappy and I'm fed up and I'm done and I've had enough. And that's when I decided to switch from the Western medical track I was on to Eastern medicine. That's when I went, became an acupuncturist, working on my master's. During that time is when I opened my business with Reiki, is because I was like, I need something different. What is lighting me up? What calls to me? And that's what it was, right? And so my mentorship along this journey has accelerated that, just like I know it's accelerated it for you. And it's just it to me, it's priceless. Like you cannot put a number on it, and yet we do, right? But all of that money, all that energy, it's energy. It's something that is an investment that will keep giving and giving and giving. So thank you. I just so appreciate you. What an incredible conversation. Do you have any other like last minute hang-arounders that you want to dive into, or do you feel complete?
Oh, I'm feeling pretty complete.
What would you say to somebody who's like playing with the idea? And this goes beyond just mentorship with me, okay? This isn't about me. This is about people changing their lives, whether it's me or somebody else. What would you say to somebody who's like teetering on the fence, like, ooh, should I, shouldn't I? Should I, shouldn't I? Do you have any like words of
I say
wisdom?
do it. I say just do it. If you're drawn to somebody, whoever it is, you don't have to. It's like if this is a new weird thing, like I don't really get what this is, but I'm drawn to somebody and there's that instinctual call, just follow it. Just do it. Like it's not going to go badly. Like it's only going to be rewarding for you. So I say move forward.
That's beautiful. Thank you. It's like Nike, just do it.
Yeah, just
I
do it.
love
Just
it.
go.
Well, thank you so much. This was absolutely incredible. You know that I adore you and love you and just like cherish our time together. So thank you so much. And maybe we'll do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steven. Take care.
I'll see you.
Bye.